I'm going to give you an example as to why I'm glad it takes me so long to put out a video. When I was originally writing this script, I had a part in it where I was discussing Andrew Tate and how even though I might not agree with everything he says and find him a bit douchey, that overall I don't have a problem with him and think he's an alright guy. He has said some things that I do agree with, and although I find him a bit douchey as previously stated, I'd expect that from him considering the career he's had and the name and legacy he's made for himself. I even went on to make fun of a lot of you for worshiping this man when he constantly shits on you. Then he got arrested. Now, I don't know any of the details on it, so I'm not making fun of him or relishing in it. I plan to wait till all the facts come out and for all the dust to settle, and then I may end up making an entire video on it. Anyway, recently I decided to review some of my old content, starting with the $15 an hour argument, and although I still stand by everything I said in my previous videos, I can admit that even though have my built-in excuse of cheap laptop, no video making or editing software, which is why I use a screen record and do everything in one go, they were a bit sloppy and rushed, and I want to make them better. I know doing this one first is a bit out of order, but I feel it's one that deserves to be redone the most. Normally, it can take me several takes when recording a video before I do one I feel is good enough. However, since that one was so long, I decided one take was going to have to cut it, hence all the fuck ups. Hopefully this time it won't be so long of a video. I just want to reiterate and clarify a few of my stances, add in a couple new talking points, and end with a few more closing arguments. For the sake of time, I'll spare you my preachy intro that I gave you last time. You can always just go back and listen to the first video, which I recommend you do anyway before or after listening to this one, regardless of how cringy and sloppy it is, because some things will be repeated and others won't, because I feel I made my point good enough last time. Anyway, let's just dive on in, shall we? As I said in the original video, I do agree with most of what's said when it comes to red pill philosophy. My problem is that no one wants to look inward and take personal responsibility or accountability for a lot of what we see today. I mean, have you ever truly thought about how women are able to do all the things they're allowed to today? It's because us men said they could. In my original video, I went over a few red pill talking points, such as women getting everything in the divorce, including custody, women avoiding to have to sign up for the selective service, men being emotionless punching bags that double as ATMs, and I made fun of a couple of sound bites going on TikTok and our platforms, before concluding with a couple final thoughts like I'm Jerry fucking Springer. Let's take these one by one, as well as add in the new stuff. Fellas, I still can't really offer you much in the way of not losing your shit in a divorce besides signing a prenup. You're going to hear me say this a lot throughout this video, because I truly want it to sink in for you, but prevention is better than cure. The only sure thing in life is death. You won't always get eaten by a shark if you swim in the ocean. However, your odds are increased exponentially just by being in the fucking water. The number one reason for death is life, and the number one reason for divorce is marriage. Now, I'm not trying to say you deserve it, nor am I trying to victim blame. I know love can make us blind and stupid, and some people are just good at deception. It happens. All I'm trying to say is with all the content that's out there on this stuff, and as much of it that's consumed, with the common knowledge that over 50% of marriages end in divorce, there's absolutely no excuse for ignorance. We all know what happens if it goes south. Now, when it comes to custody, that's where we need to look inward. Think back to the way your grandparents and great grandparents lived. Think of the old gender norms of the past. That's what a lot of you like to do anyway, since you want to bring back traditionalism, and I'll explain here soon why you don't really want that. Again, men, we have always been the stronger, more dominant sex since the beginning of time. Remember what I just told you. It was us that allowed women to have all the freedoms they enjoy today. For thousands of years, we made the rules and decided how things would go. Whether it was programmed into our DNA or not, since the beginning of time or not, because even if it wasn't, with us being the stronger sex, we would have made it happen. We were the ones that decided it's a man's duty to provide and a woman's sole duty to pop out kids and raise them. It's been that way ever since the cavemen would go out and kill a dinosaur for their cave woman to cook and feed to the family. Your grandfather would come home from work, hang up his hat, put on his slippers, that your grandmother fetched for him, of course, and sit in the chair to smoke his pipe and read the paper, after she fetched those for him as well, all while your grandmother did the housework and took care of your baby mom or dad. With that being said, with the nice little setup or deal we've had for so long of men being the hunter-gatherer and the women being the maid and child care, is it any wonder why courts usually side with the mother? I'm not saying this is right, and I have absolutely no ideas on how to change that. If it were up to me, the child would always go to the parent proven to be the more mentally and financially stable. But, again, prevention is better than cure. And here's why you don't want to go back to traditionalism. I made fun of this TikTok soundbite at the end of my last video, but I'm going to bring it up here because I feel it ties in well with the point I want to make. In this soundbite, a man is saying, what it means to be a man is that your mental health doesn't fucking matter, and he's 100% wrong. Your mental health matters to those you matter to. Whether you're a man or woman, we're all self-centered people that don't really give a fuck about other people. I remember an old saying when I was a kid that goes, I don't have time to hear your problems, I've got my own. And that still rings true today with the majority of people. Yeah, your boss doesn't care about your mental health. He has a business to run and needs a body to show up and do the work. The mortgage company or the landlord doesn't care that you've been too depressed to get out of bed and go to work to earn the money to pay them. Your mental health only matters to your friends and family, and if it doesn't, you don't need them in your life. By the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with you, and the only one your mental health, just like your physical health, needs to matter to. You're the one it should matter to the most, and that means doing whatever it takes to keep yourself mentally healthy, even if that means going to therapy. There's another short TikTok of a man acting depressed with a caption that read, November was Men's Mental Health Month and nobody talked about it. You're right, no one did. Especially men. This is just like when Bill Burr made fun of women for failing women's sports. The gist of his joke was that it's women's job to support women's sports, not men. So, men, it's your job to support your mental health, not women's. I didn't see one red pill popping bro talk about it at all. You know what I did see? And why men's mental health was probably overshadowed? Non-stop, no nut November nonsense that was also started and supported by men. But see, gentlemen, this is why you don't want traditionalism back. I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but hardly have I ever heard or seen a woman telling a man to man up or stop crying or stop being a sissy or whatever. Yes, it happens, but the majority of the time, men are being told this by other men. It was your great grandpappy telling your grandpappy and so on that men don't cry and that they pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It was us in high school and college telling a friend to stop being a wuss when he showed emotion. Right now, we're far from mission accomplished, but we're at a point now where men's mental health is finally being taken seriously. If we go back, you're undoing all that progress and all the progress that was still to come. I keep hearing you guys say that the number one reason for the downfall we're seeing in society today is a result from all of us defying our gender roles in terms of women opting for a career instead of family, men being stay-at-home dads, and people having premarital sex and children out of wedlock. Is all that true? I don't know, and I'll be even more honest with you. I don't really care. Nothing lasts forever, and one day a meteor is going to hit this planet and turn it into space dust. All I know is if you want to see men getting awarded custody more, you want to see more of this role reversal. Think about it. Since women for the longest time have been seen as the nurturing stay-at-home child care, that's why they get custody, and since they have to be constantly home to take care of the little shit and therefore can't work, at least not all that much, that's why you have to pay child support. Now think about it. If your woman is the breadwinner and has the big-time career, and you're the stay-at-home child care, the odds are more in your favor now of getting the kid and her being put on child support. Now, I could be completely wrong on this, but you know what I'm not wrong about? Prevention is better than cure. Now let's talk about women in the selective service. I can admit I'm torn on this one. I said in my original video that any woman who decides to serve their country or even join the police force deserves the utmost respect, especially from men like me who didn't serve or join law enforcement. And I still stand by that. However, I also said I agree with women in the military, but not necessarily law enforcement. Reason being is because it's two different playing fields. When you're in the military and you're in a live combat situation, you don't care who's next to you as long as they can shoot. It's war. The name of the game is to kill or be killed. Shoot first, ask questions never. When you're a cop, it's the exact opposite. Your job is to talk to people, treat them with dignity and respect, and de-escalate and resolve tough situations with the least amount of force and violence as possible. Shooting someone is supposed to be a last resort when all else fails. With that being said, you can look up right now tons of videos of female cops trying to go hands on with male suspects and getting knocked out or tossed around like rag dolls, even by men smaller than them. Now, yes, there's been instances where female cops use their batons, and for whatever reason, whether the guy was drugged out of his mind or they're just not swinging them as hard as their male counterparts can, it didn't work. And when they decided to use pepper spray and tasers, that failed too. In that instance, that's a situation that'd be tough even for a big, strong male officer. It just honestly pisses me off and pains me to see a female cop or security guard getting knocked down by a male suspect and getting stomped until backup arrives, or she's forced to shoot him for survival. All because no one had the guts to tell her a long time ago that she's not one of the boys. What do I mean by that? Well, we all know what type of women join the military and police force. The ones that grew up with brothers and think they're tough little tomboys because they honestly deluded themselves into thinking they were able to compete with them when they wrestled or played football with them, not realizing how much their brothers held back on them. That is until they get ratchet in public with a man or become a cop and go try to go hands on with a male suspect that gives no fucks about them and she gets the sonic rings knocked out of her. However, as much as it does pain me to see this happen to a female cop or security guard or whatever, I can admit there's a small bit of satisfaction I feel when I see the look of realization on her face when she realizes her metaphorical dick isn't as big as she thought it was. And this is where my hypocrisy comes into play, because even if I don't completely agree with women on the police force, it truly is equality in every sense of the word. Women can join the military and take a bullet for their country like a man, and they can become a cop and get treated by suspects the same way male cops do. Equal rights, equal lefts, right, gentlemen? Yeah, except you're all hypocrites about this too. Why do you think only men are expected to sign up for the selective service? Because for the longest time until 1948, women weren't even allowed to fight in the military. That was another thing that was seen as a man's duty by men. If there were ever to be another draft, why do you think women are unlikely to be drafted? It's because even though we're in the year 2023, hey, I wrote the script last year, and even though a lot of you men claim you want women to do their fair share, which goes against your traditionalism, and I will get into that here soon, it's still seen by the majority of men, especially male leaders, as a man's duty to fight and defend his country and its citizens. It's part of us being chivalrous. Let us fight and keep the women and children safe, right? Let me be clear. I'm very anti war, but I am not anti soldier. With that being said, this is actually something I agree with. What? You men want women to go fight war while you work in the factories like they did in World War II and take care of the house and kids, and you still want to be seen as big, tough, dominant alpha males? Not how that works, guys. And by the way, I'm sure there's plenty of Republican men listening to this, and some of you may have served in the military or on the police force. And I can imagine there's more that aren't watching this video, and the majority of you all have something in common. I'm sure a lot of you have at least one story of being in trouble or your life being on the line and your female counterpart helped or saved you. Well, guess what? If you had your way of traditionalism, women opting for family instead of career, your ass would probably be dead. Remember that. And if women weren't supposed to be in the workforce, then why are there so many jobs that are seen as jobs for women and men are made fun of by other men for doing those jobs? But I won't get into that. Instead, we'll just get right into the third talking point of us being seen as emotionless credit cards. Hate to say it, men, but blame your granddads again for this one. Again, it was your great grandpappy telling your grandpappy and so on that emotions are for girls. It was us putting pressure on ourselves to be the hunter gatherers, the providers, and to be head of the household. It was us that were so insecure we didn't want them to have jobs because we didn't want our dames meeting another fella or boinking the boss earning more money than us. Not like it is now where we want them to work so they can help out financially, which, yes, I still plan to touch on that here in a sec. As a matter of fact, let's do it now. Back then, if a woman had a job even though she had a man, that man was seen as a failure by other men. You guys say you want traditionalism back? Well, that's traditionalism. You want to take it back to a time that suits you, but at the same time, you also still want her to split bills, rent, and dates with you. How can she do that without a job or a career? You want to take things back to the way they were in your grandpa's time, but if your grandpa could see how beta you all are acting now, he'd laugh at you before killing himself because he'd rather be dead again than see this. Fellas, seriously, what are we doing? There used to be just a few Redpill channels out there, now they're everywhere. I can't even scroll through YouTube shorts without being blindsided by 100 of them, and I'm seeing even more now because I'll watch a few on occasion for a good laugh. They all follow the same format. It's either a bunch of bros sitting around bitching about women. Sometimes they have some hot, clueless looking broad guest starring that either agrees with them or they make her look stupid so they can feel superior. Then you've got the ones where it's just some useless twat changing his facial expressions every 5 seconds while nodding his head in approval and pointing while someone he agrees with feeds his bias. And last and certainly least, you have these dudes that are either wearing suits and they're smoking cigars trying their best to look like alpha bosses, or in reality they live in an apartment and work at their local grocery store. Lately, the talking point has been about ballsy, bossy alpha women going after high value men and telling these women that high value men don't want them. They prefer traditional women. While that may be true, it's almost coming off as you guys trying to tell her, hey, baby, that awesome Thunder Chad doesn't want you. Come settle for a guy like me. If you really stop and think about it, that sounds very beta of you and is taking you further away from being like your grandpappy. But guys, don't you get it? Not all women are clueless and stupid. A lot of them are seeing right through you. A lot of them realize you're scorned and bitter, so you're acting out. With all the red pill content popping up, and with the way you all are emulating each other, it really is like Al Bundy with No Ma'am. Your wives or girlfriends or exes or other women in general are just laughing at you and thinking, is he squawking and belly aching again? He'll come back when he wants some pussy. And they're right. Bitch about them all you want, but when you're a straight man, what are you gonna do? They're the only game in town, and you know you can't beat all for you sex toys forever. You'll just end up leaving her for another pair of tits that might end up doing the same thing to you. You guys talk about women dating douchebags and how it's not all men, it's just their taste in certain men. And then you put on your blinders as you jump from one toxic woman to the next. Look, guys, I'm on your side, but we gotta do better and do a little less finger pointing and a little more mirror gazing. As I said in the beginning, some things will be repeated from my original video, others won't. Yes, this is my way of copying out, being lazy, and sparing you my long, preachy outro from the last video. You want things to change? Stop being afraid of being alone. Again, prevention is better than cure. With this being said, there will not be a part 3. I'm done talking about this. I feel I've made my feelings and opinions on the matter very clear. Even though the original video sucked, please watch it and all the others so you can grasp everything. Have a good night and a pleasant tomorrow.